So this is our new podcast studio. What do you think?
Quite like it, although I don't know whether they're for aesthetics or whether it's actually noise cancelling.
I think it's to tone JV's sound down.
Yeah. He's gone early, isn't he?
He's got it straight in with that little jab.
I know I had a bit of fun at Christmas, but whoa, early days.
I've had 6 weeks to think of that.
It's a good.
Yeah.
Today, I've had a really good conversation with Jon and Neil about the future of work. And we've jumped right forward to 2052 and beyond. And we've described to you, the audience, what we think work will look like at that point in time. So we've touched on things like the metaverse and how that will interplay with our work life. We've touched on what that will mean to us as individuals and to society in general. So, without further ado, welcome to Tomorrow's Workplace Today. I want to take you forward, let's say 30 years. Okay.
Perfect.
What's 30 years look like? 2052.
Hang on, I think I'm just retiring about that time.
Retirement and letting technology
Do it.
do what they won't miss me. No one will miss me.
It's the only accurate comment you're going to make during this whole podcast.
Today's my day.
So 2032, JV's on the golf course, which is the best place for him, right? What does a workplace of 2032 look like?
10 years time.
2052.
2052.
There we go.
I'll do it again. So
No. Keep
okay.
it. All of this remains.
Oh,
It's a podcast.
you could edit.
No more
I'm sure when he
editing.
interviewed you, he said you could edit videos.
I may have made some
Yeah.
exaggerations of my skill set.
All right, so 2052. I'll start with Neil. Describe it to me. What's it looking like?
If Mr. Zuckerberg has his way, we'll all be sat at home with our little head.
Meta.
sets
You're going
up,
straight
and
into
we're going
Meta.
Straight in. I think
Wow, okay.
That's what the future holds. If again, the guy's got quite a bit of money and he seems to control a fair bit of digital real estate. So he, if he gets his way, then again, that world for generations of kids that have grown up gaming online, they plug in anyway. They stick their headsets on. That's how they socialise. So it's like they're home from school straight away. They're on and they're doing whatever, Minecraft
Brilliant.
or
Absolutely.
My
Brilliant.
kids are too young for this. I've not seen this yet, and I'm
It's coming,
this generation.
Steve, it's coming. You've just very accurately summed up my son.
yeah.
But the thing is, I think about it, while technology is going to be brilliant and life will be so much easier, just what we're doing now, having a chat.
Yeah, I worry
In a room
about
together.
That, yeah. Will that generation still go down the pub? Now, I think they probably will, but I don't know what it's going to look like. Because even if you think about the last 2 years, where students they've had to stay in, they've been told to isolate. Well, how have they socialised? Have they gone the opposite way when they have been allowed out? Have they gone to the clubs and the bars and other bits and pieces? And it'll be interesting to see the stats on that. But it's we talk about communication, like you said, like how do you have a conversation with people? And I don't think that generation have learned that it's a skill set at the end of the day. And I don't know about you, but when I grew up, I sort of, your first jobs are always kind of, I don't know, service industry type jobs. I was a paper boy, and then I was working in a restaurant, or like a little waiter or whatever. And you start chatting to people quite early doors. But if they're not entering the workplace until a lot later, say they go to university or whatever, but
Are they gonna have those
on the
skills?
flip side, are they going to be more confident because they can sit in front of a camera and talk on a mic and have an opinion about certain things? And you see them streaming now; they're on Twitch or whatever, and they're playing a game, but they're commentating on it and interacting with comments on a screen, and it's like, well, that's how they use to comment.
They're communicating in a
communicate
different way, different mediums, I guess. So you're talking about metaverse then, and work. So describe that to me then. How are those two things coming together? What does that look like?
So I guess from what I've seen so far, that instead of the audiovisual sort of Teams type meetings and everybody sat around a boardroom table and you have your big telly on the wall and you've got your camera, I think the way that it's been pitched is you're at home and you've got a headset on and virtually you're sat around a table. But a lot of this is, if you think about the movies that we've seen over the years, a lot of the concepts actually, I think, come from all these Star Trek type sci-fi movies where that's kind of how they did it in those, and they just bring up, whether it be Avengers, whether it be whatever, and they're bringing up virtual people in augmented reality around a theoretical sort of board table that didn't exist, and it's like, yeah, it's just but go on.
That sounds, I'll be honest, I can't wait to be on the golf course. If that's how in 30 years' time it's going to be, and it's not because I don't like technology, I love technology, but you know, we were mentioning a little bit ago about like university. If we take, and I'm not disagreeing what you're saying, but it just doesn't sound like a world that I love, because university, everyone's just going to be at home because we'll be virtually in, you know.
I know what you mean. But I've just finished a book, actually, just talking about films. Thank you. Yeah. First ever. But no, Ready Player One is called.
Okay.
And it basically describes...
So hang on, you read the book and didn't watch the film?
I think there's a film. I was about
to
I've not seen the film.
Wow, okay.
But the book was really good. And it describes very...
See, I've not seen the film.
Very similarly what you just described. It's a kid, isn't it? And he lives with his auntie in a caravan or something. But he spends his days in this alternative universe, and he goes to school there, he goes to bars there. That's where he lives his life all the time. The concept sounds a bit scary to start with, but actually all the experiences that you just described, he gets in a kind of alternative universe. And so is that any different?
And then it's kind of like, okay, so what is the benefits of that, I guess? Well, you are opening the world up to people that do live in completely remote, as long as they've got an internet connection, then they don't have to travel 4 or 5 hours. So it's like, so now at the moment, for the last 2 years, I've been using Teams instead of having to drive 3, 4, 5 hours to see my customers. And if you look at my performance in terms of effectiveness in sales, because I'm getting to have more meetings, sat in front of more people. I've reduced my expense overhead because I'm not driving. So there's pros and cons. Am I still having the same experience with the product that I'm selling, with it being digital? Yes, I think people they're able to see the product because it's software. They're getting to see that they're having the conversations with myself and Richard, and I'm not. Maybe I'm a bit of an odd one out, but I'm not missing the travelling to go see people.
You're absolutely right.
I don't agree.
Really?
I agree in the main. Where I'll counter is, so this week I've actually been out in my car a bit, and I've actually quite enjoyed the freedom of, while I do accept that with Teams it's much more efficient, as in you can go from one meeting to the next instead of traveling between A, B and C. Get that. Where I'd counter it is that actually one of the strengths that we have and anyone has is their eyes. Going into a company, and actually as you walk through reception, you see something, you think, oh, I remember that, I'll bring that up. Or you walk through to the meeting room and you go through multiple different departments and you see that and you go, I'll bring that up. On Teams, it's just like the three of us having a chat.
That's a good point.
And you don't see it. And I also think the other thing with Teams where you can be, and don't get me wrong, I agree with you. I've found it beneficial to be able to have meetings all around, the British Isles, and not have to take a ferry to have a meeting in Ireland, and not have to take a plane to go down to Cornwall, wherever. Is that from a personal point of view, I sometimes find it a little bit stressful in that you go from meeting to meeting to meeting. You never have an opportunity to decompress and condense what you've had the last meeting about, and you're straight into the next one. And I sometimes think that actually having that time to go from A to B in your car, preferably an electric car, it's coming, to make a couple of calls, to decompress and identify the things that, right, I need to organise that for that meeting, rather than going through and then going, at the end of the day, I've got all of these points to catch up on.
So maybe it's difference between effective and effectiveness. You're saying efficiency and effectiveness.
Yeah.
We can be very efficient because we can have 8 meetings in a day, but actually, how effective are those meetings, and are we getting the best out?
I do agree with you. If you have back-to-back Teams meetings and it's relentless all day, and you do come out with a different type of stress, and it's like, you do feel as like, I need to get up and go for a walk. I need to go take the dog out or do something, because it's like, and you're right with the driving. The irony is, I do love driving, so it's a case of, I've sacrificed that slightly, but 100% when you are in a customer's office and you're walking around, you can spot things, or they can bring you and point out certain things, or you can look over the shoulder of how are you doing it currently, and that type of stuff.
I think the other thing, though, just jumping in, the other thing is that actually you've only got to look. One of the, and please, no one that watches this think that I'm against technology, because I love it, and I think it's it's going to add value, and where we go in 30 years' time. I dread to think, but I don't dread to think. It's really exciting what our children are going to go through. But that said, I've lost my train of thought.
No editing. Remember?
No. The thing with technology is that in the last 2 years, one of the concerns has been mental health, and it's a really serious subject. And a lot of it has been because people have been stuck at home and they haven't been interacting. So when we go back to the metaverse and we're talking about putting VR headsets on and we're going to be in this meeting room, actually, if you're just in the same room, the same 4 walls, or, be it a room or a house or wherever, actually, do you know what? That's I wonder what the offset of being able to be anywhere you want using this unbelievable technology is for your actual well-being.
Yeah, you're right, because as a human being, we've got more than just, we've got more senses than just our eyes. So, if we was to, because if it's just a meeting room and we're going to talk to people in a meeting room, I get that. But then when it goes from a leisure perspective, if they started to do virtual reality of visit Hawaii or whatever, I'm going to go surf in Hawaii. Well, there's more than just sticking a headset on and being there. And again, a lot of the virtual reality stuff now is like swimming with whales or whatever, and underwater, and these experiences that just kind of freak our brain out a little bit, because we're not having the other senses of the sensation of our skin being under the water, all these other bits.
As technology evolves, in 30 years, will we have that fully immersive virtual reality experience? And
potentially.
How different will that be to this?
There'll be people in R&D centres up and down the country. There'll be people trying to create that type of thing. It's a bit like years and years ago, they try and do smell-o-vision or something like that. They're bringing senses into TV and stuff like that. But it's, the 3D TV kind of came and went pretty quickly, but now it's all about the audio. So they're trying to do spatial audio around you to try and immerse you. But again, the argument is it'd still be better to be at the live gig or event or go to the actual cinema or that type of stuff. It's an experience. Humans still like to embody and embrace experiences. So the metaverse for me, from a workplace, it would be great to. It's more of a collaboration thing. To, again, like we've touched on, space and time. I'd have to fly to China or America or whatever. We can bring, as long as people in the right time zones, you can actually have these better sort of what would you say? Better sort of conversations, or could it be like all these expos and trade events? So I don't know. People have got these massive rooms. So at the moment, if you can't attend them in person, you do a virtual one on Zoom or whatever. Well, what if you put your headset on and actually walk the floor as if you were at the event? But then when you walked up to, I don't know, someone's event and you pressed a button and they popped up and you started conversing with a person there, there's going to be different ways of interacting. Because really, as in a business, nearly every business is there to serve another. They all have customers. So it's, yes, okay, if you're going to be manufacturing something, it's going to be a strange thing, because more and more robots are building things, cars and
The robots are
do
coming.
you know what I mean? But then the humans in the back office that we generally see a lot of with the paperwork, a lot of that might be moving to the blockchain. A lot of that's going to be how do you generate? Will we need this information anymore? Are we just going to tap watches and it's going to transact and all this type of stuff? And it's like,
So that vision that Neil kind of just described in terms of the metaverse and people going to work in the metaverse while they're sat at home in their underpants or whatever. Is that do you
Wow.
buy into that? Is that and how far away is that? Are you going to be still around?
Well,
when that
touch
happens?
wood, Steve. I'm still around. That's
years.
that's the aim and the desire. Yeah. Well, exactly. I was actually going to say for me, it's probably less so about the three of us in this room. It's more about our kids and what's their employment opportunities going to be like, and what will that involve. And I mean, we were saying about kids and they come in from school and they go straight upstairs, put the headset on, and that's it. See you later. Bedtime. I think so. When it comes to the work side of it, I can see that happening. What I was going to come back to Neil on, just as an alternative, and I'm not trying to be argumentative this afternoon, is around. I think where technology is going to really evolve and help is actually sort of not quite hybrid, but if someone wants to go and meet someone personally, they can. If they can't or they don't want to, they don't have to, and it's going to give that choice. And you were saying, let's do a business deal in China rather than you've got a road trip, you've got in the current climate, emissions and all of that. Actually, being able to do something like that, but it be a bit more than just in a screen in a Teams environment, and it's more holistic, if you will. Then I think it's great. But for me, I'm thinking probably not about me in 30 years. I'm thinking more about my son, our kids, as to what they're going to do, what jobs are they, what skills are they going to need? Because the way technology is going, you've only got to see how Zuckerberg and that side of things, Amazon, how they evolve, pretty much month on month as to something new. How that will impact our kids and what skills will they need? Will they need to go to university, or will a computer or a VR headset take that away? You were saying earlier about or maybe you, Steve, about Google. There's where you need to go to reference anything you need. Go to Google. So what do our kids need down the line?
Good question.
And even accelerating that. So does a degree necessarily need to take 4 years when at the end of that degree, the information you've just learnt's outdated? Depends on which degree you're in, but things like marketing moving so quickly, trends move and emerge. So, I mean, Alan Sugar was talking about TikTok, and it's like, hang on, a couple of years ago, he's on The Apprentice talking about the importance of having a social media strategy and using TikTok, and it's like, hang on, what? But yeah, it could be that you want to learn a specific topic, but these micro courses that are, I don't know, could be an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 6 weeks long, gives you enough information to obviously then go and do what you want to do. But I think if you still want to be a doctor, or even things like doctors, is going to be an interesting one, because I've got a friend of mine that's in the wellbeing space, and he's doing a lot with tech and the whole AI within that, where they can diagnose test results, and you've got a bot doing it and just looking and analysing all the data, and they're going to be able to do diagnosis based on data and things like that. It's phenomenal. But again, that's there to assist the human ultimately. And then I see a lot of it, if we aren't going to be doing the office-based stuff that we used to, then what will we be doing? And I get I think there's going to be more and more experiences. So as we free up, say, okay, so what do I want to do? I want to go to that country. I want to live there for a month or 6 months, or I want to go and trek in the jungle, or I want to go to see the Sahara Desert or whatever. So the travel is going to be interesting, but also restaurants and art galleries and all these other music venues. So that the sensory stuff that we like to do, you're still going to have people working in there as a service-based sort of industry.
But in
then the
30 years' time, do you think?
Well, okay. So
What about
would that
physical
look like?
robots? Not just like software robots, but in 30 years' time.
Yeah, people that are taking your tickets and stuff, a lot of that might be automated, that you can just walk in and...
We'll probably have a chip inside us that we'll walk through. If trains are still around, we'll walk through a train station and there'll be a
cameras will
chip
just
or
be
something.
picking up, that's Steve Motley's in London, and they'll know exactly where you are, and it'll charge your Amazon account. You'll just pick up a bottle. I mean, it happens now. I was in London the other week, and they had the Amazon Fresh, and it's happening now. So in 30 years, that will probably be more accomplished. You just walk in, pick up what you want, walk out, and it'll just charge you.
So that's two sectors that you've kind of touched on that are going to change significantly probably over the next 20 years. So in terms of retail, it's that almost self-service, 100% self-service function. And then in terms of medical, using AI and machine learning to actually do a lot of that diagnostics. I mean, that's real close to kind of what we do, and you can see that happening, can't you?
And I think with that the beauty of that is that certainly from the health side of things, even though you've got some really clever experts dotted around the world, and that can having something where software can just go right, those 6 things equals that. Look at that, and exactly, and then meaning that we can potentially live longer because we can get to the root cause of whatever the ailment is way sooner is brilliant.
Earlier,
A brief pause to our chat, just to tell you a little bit about Spectrum Digital and how we help companies just like yourselves. So we help automate mundane tasks within a business, be it in HR, be it in finance, sales, operations, health and safety, you name it. Where you would like to get more from your staff, we can help. So I'll let you get back to the chat, but think Spectrum Digital.
All these things, because that trend is going to replicate across all industries, or loads of industries, and that's going to mean that people are needed less to do kind of mundane tasks. So what's going to be the result of that? Is that going to be people are going to work less? So we're going to be working 3-4 days a week?
4 day a week?
4 day, we see that on LinkedIn, and we see a lot of that kind of in the news. Is that going to happen and take off? Or is that time going to be consumed doing other stuff that we're not currently doing?
I personally think it will. The 4 day a week is probably the one that's been studied the most at the moment. So I know in Sweden they're looking at it a lot. In Japan, I think they're looking at it a lot. And you're right, they're basing it on effectiveness. So it's a case of if you're used to going in Monday to Friday 9 to 5, are you actually so? There's a big thing around absenteeism, but then presenteeism. So you've come in, but are you actually working?
Wow, there's a term.
What are you doing? Are you present? Are you actually done something? So what is the desired outcome of your role? Is it effective? Can you get it done in 4 days? Probably, if you condensed it. But
anecdotally, I've not looked into it in detail, but the results seem to indicate that you can be as effective in a 4 day week as you can in a 5. I don't know. But
so then,
your face is suggesting not.
Yeah, I'm not having that.
Why not? Why not? Come on.
Simply because I think there's potential in certain roles where you can, be more effective in be more effective in 4 days, have the 5th day off, and have a nice long weekend. But for me, as we are now, 2022, I don't think many roles you could do it, because I think, and it's things that articles I've read and statements I've seen on Twitter and other mediums is around you work longer in the before the 4 days that you're working. You get tired later into the day where you're doing those extra hours. In a sales role, you can't get hold of people. If you're doing, 4 9-hour days or 10-hour days, there's going to be times where you're not going to be able to get hold of the people that you want. I see it as down the line. I can see it being absolutely the norm, and I wish that for our kids in the future, that if they can have a more even split between recreational and getting life experiences and then earning a crust. But at the moment, and I know it's just in its embryonic stages at the moment, for me though, I can't see how it can work. The only way I can see it can work is actually by some of the things that we offer to the, where we're taking a lot of the mundane or the manual bits away, and I'm not trying to take it down that road, but that's the only way. If we have to do the same doing what we do in 4 days instead of 5, I can't see whether the quality will be there in that condensed period.
But that's the point, isn't it? A lot of what all of us do day to day can be automated, and certainly in time will be automated, which is going to free up a percentage of your time, whatever that percentage is. So then are you going to use that percentage to have a better work-life balance, or will the next generation use that to have a better work-life balance, or will they use that percentage to do other stuff?
Because you could rewind the clock, because what we're talking about here is like a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. That's not always been the working way of life. So if you rewind it further, so I know we're projecting sort of in the future by 30 years, but if we rewind it further, even 100 years, you've got certain industries, they're working 7 days a week. They're in certain countries now, and they talk about it in terms of modern day slavery and all this type of stuff. There's people working in factories 12 hours days every day. And
but they don't have a say, do they? A lot of those. Whereas
you're right. So
you do.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? Are you going to spend a day on the golf course, or are you going to spend that day that you freed up doing something else in a work capacity?
Now, in all honesty, it does depend whether I share with the wife that I've gone down to 4 days or not. Because if I don't, then I'm on the golf course. If I have to share it, then I'm part of it, actually, which I always struggle to find time. I'd probably try and do things like, more charitable work and things like that. Or, depending on situation, potentially, just use that 5th day to, I don't know, mean I get a fast start the Monday after. I don't know, Steve. I've not really seriously thought about it.
I think it's human nature, though. People will use that time to do something else, but in a work capacity, I think they'll fill it with other stuff that they're not currently doing. Like a few years ago, we weren't doing podcasts. Nobody was doing podcasts. Now we are doing a podcast, and so is loads of other businesses.
You are right. You are right. There's certain people that are cut from that certain cloth, that they've got that work ethic. They want to. Again, they might have a 9 to 5, like you say, and then they've got a side hustle on an evening. They've got another job on a weekend. They're constantly.
What did you say? Side hustle.
Yeah, side hustle.
Love it.
You know what I mean? I'm up with all these.
You're
trendy
proper in.
terms,
Yeah, you're in with the trendy terms, despite your age.
He's a personal trainer. Did I mention that to you?
No,
he's done that quite a bit.
That's what I do in the side hustle. Yeah, I mean, but no, in terms of like, you've put me off my question. I don't know. You completely knocked me off.
We live in a capitalist society, don't we? Everyone's trying to make money.
Sorry. I did remember back in the room. Yeah, I've known people that have worked on oil rigs or firemen and things like that, and they work different shifts. Like firemen, they can get their full shift done in 3 or 4 days, and then they're like, now what? So they have, some of them do become personal trainers because it's flexible. They can work the diary around it or whatever. And then oil rigs, again, they'll go away for 3 months and come back for 3 months, and they've got nothing to do. And then you do get the people that are like, well, I like to keep busy. So, and I'm quite entrepreneurial, so I'll set up another service, I'll do something. So you're right, unless you've got a hobby, whether it be golf, whether it be gardening, whether it be DIY, whether it be something or art, or you're going to have to take up your time doing something. Unless you're going to sit on the sofa and just binge Netflix. It's like, but you do get people that do that as well. So it's a bit like,
it's true.
And I guess you touched on it earlier with the mental health thing. It's a kind of, okay, am I actually put on this planet? Am I born to work, or am I trying to work so I can live type scenario? And it's like, once you've earned enough money to cover your bills and you've done that bit, then it's like, okay, next, what do I do with this leisure disposable income? How can I invest, or at what level do I want to get to? And you're right, there's certain people on this planet that don't have a choice, and then we're lucky enough to sort of live in a civilization where we're doing this in this, I suppose, country to a level. But you're right. What if it was up to me? I'd probably go down to the 4-day week. What would I do with the extra time? I'd probably try and spend a bit more time with the family, because I do find
they don't want you.
And you're right, yeah. I do find by the time I've decompressed, Saturday's gone, and Sunday,
Wow.
and then I'm ready.
You're not running the country. Well, it
and then
takes
I'm-
all
and then
day
I'm
to
ready, yeah.
decompress.
Yeah, and then I'm ready to go again on Sunday. I'm starting to think about work again on Monday.
Yeah.
So, but
takes
then
4 days to recompress.
yeah.
What do you think
Yeah.
you, as an employer? So you're heading up part of the business. What's your view on people? If people start coming up to you and going, Steve, I'd love to start working a 4-day week. How'd you go about that?
Yeah, I think we can make it
Take
work.
notes,
and
Wellsy.
we do make it work. In fairness, you've got people that work 4 days in the business.
Yep.
At the end of the day, you want to measure people by outcomes, don't you? Do they deliver outcomes within that working period? If they do, then as a leader, then I'm happy. Ultimately, I think you'll get different people will use that time in different ways. Like some people will use it to invest and build the next business and become entrepreneurial. Some people will use it to spend time with their family, and I think it's
Others will
that's
get
up
their
to-
handicap down.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. So
And
that's up to
but for
different
you
people.
personally, what are your thoughts on going to the chairman and saying, "Can I start working 4 days a week?"
It's a fair point. It's probably not something that I would do at this point in my career, but in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years time, could I see myself doing that? Yeah, probably could.
In the time frame that we're talking, you'll probably be thinking, actually, 4 days would be perfect.
Yeah, why not? I think you're not here for long, are you? You've got to make the most of your time here.
Jumping in again, just to say, look, if you're enjoying the conversation, like and subscribe, really important for us. But if you want any more insights as to what we do, how we can help, then jump onto the website. We've got some white papers, we've got some insights, we've got some case studies that I'm sure you'll find really interesting. Right, I'll let you go. Back to the chat.
You go up the scale, the higher you go up the scale, the more value. So these people with massive net worths, they've still only got the same 24 hours in a day that does. And then they have to be very, very, very specific over how they spend their time and who they spend their time with. And at what topics. So they filter out quite a lot of that stuff. And in the past, they had bodies to filter out that. They had PAs, they had assistants, they had staff. You could argue we've got tech now to filter out a lot of that stuff and protect our time to only focus on the key things that their brains need to be focusing on. Because again, you've got world leaders, you've got these massive entrepreneurial sort of business owners, and you look at Elon Musk. He's talking about colonizing another planet, for God's sake. He's gone beyond like monetary terms of like the Earth. He's like a bit like, well, I've got 3 successful companies. My net worth's this. What he's thinking about is gone beyond even our planet. And the irony is, so is Jeff Bezos, so is Richard Branson. So there's a select few people that are thinking on a different wavelength than most people. So that by the time we come to 2050, you never know. With those two going at it, they might have a rocket on. We might have a colony on the moon. We might have spaceships flying backwards and forwards.
Travel agents will be space agents.
Well, yeah. So already, Richard Branson selling tickets to experience what it's like to be weightless and go to space as such. So it's a bit like, wow, okay, and a lot of that has been compounded. The acceleration in the last few years has been scary since even the iPhone, the iPad, all that. Yeah, the last 10 years has been quite nuts.
When was the iPhone out? Bax?
I think it came out in 2008. So
Yeah, that sounds about right.
14 years.
Yeah.
It's, when you're in it, you don't realise, do you? But a lot's happened in 14 years. It's
in my lifetime, I remember dial-up. I remember fax machine. I'm at that cusp where I remember sort of the first PCs and stuff like that in the 80s. So in the last 40 years,
Colour
so we're
TVs
talking
for
about
me.
30 years. But colour TVs.
Okay.
Yeah. To be fair, we still
Flat
had
screens.
black
We
and
went
white.
from round screens to flat screens, and that was like earth-shattering.
Well, yeah, I remember the widescreen. Everything was a square box, wasn't it? And then all of a sudden widescreen, and then we went from there. But yeah.
So if you think about that, then the iPhone 14 years ago, in another 14 years, to take it back to where we started, that kind of metaverse concept, could that be happening? I feel like it could. I feel like that could be how we go to work, or how a big proportion of the population go to work.
get in the TARDIS and just get to a point B
think
wherever you need,
so
and you'll be
think
there.
about that then. So in terms of what you said there, the TARDIS. So that concept of time travel that's been talked about in Doctor Who and all these different like Star Trek and stuff like that. Effectively, that kind of you're putting on a helmet,
Exactly,
and you're getting teleported to another location, and then you're there instantly, more or less.
just watch out for the Daleks.
Yeah,
But it's win-win,
So
isn't
it's
it?
kind
So
of-
for the colleague employees, they don't have to travel to work. They can stay at home.
Good for
roll
emissions.
out of
good
bed.
for emissions.
Good
yeah.
for emissions.
You think about
good for the world, good for the planet, good for UK PLC in terms of the economy, good for the business because they don't have to invest in big head offices and the overheads that come with that, cheaper expenses, blah blah blah. The technology exists. It's there. I can't really see what's going to stop it happening.
And it's happening. Like again, you just said it just then. These big businesses that are getting rid of their head offices because it's expensive real estate, and I've spoken to two this week that have done exactly that. Big multinational companies that their little subsidiaries that they've acquired, they're a bit like, well, don't necessarily need that head office anymore. That there's 100 workers that I used to having. They're all working from home. They're all doing a job. Yes, okay. Some of them have, and because they've leased this nice fancy building, they've got rid of that one. They've decided to put a temporary building in a place that they own the land and things like that. So they're trying to reduce the costs in that regard. But but then if you speak to some of the creatives, like I know that certain people in the sort of marketing space and advertising, and they will argue like mad that they want to be together because they can bounce off each other, creative ideas. They can,
And that's
But you can be together though.
that's
in
the key for me. Well, yeah, you can. And I know I'm coming across as the dinosaur here, but you can. But the key for me is that I actually think we're at the start of that curve. So we don't actually know, it's a bit like, not getting controversial, like, your vaccinations and things like that. We don't know down the line what actually may, if there are any side effects. And the same is, if we start getting rid of all these central buildings that people are used to coming into, we don't know what the effects are 5 years from when the pandemic started and we all had to start working from home. We're basing everything on a very small data set. And that's not to say, of course we are. We're going to end up and we'll all be working from home and we'll all be putting these things on and ending up somewhere else. But
even if you did have to get your team together once a month, which, yeah, you're right. In the meantime, we can use the metaverse to do a lot of that. But once a month, we get together. You still don't need head office.
More of a social,
use a shared space
or a shared space.
Sort.
Yeah, that's fair. And
working type space.
That happens now when you've got like lots of regional salespeople or things like that.
You flip it the other way. If you look at it the other way in terms of like what we've seen in retail, so obviously all the online sort of stores and people started purchasing online with Amazon and all the rest of it. The high street just died a death. But even before that, we had these sort of shopping outlet malls and other bits of that's sort of on the outskirts of city centres. So I mean, in Hull where we live, you go down Whitefordgate or wherever, where it used to be full of shops and M&S and all these big, they've all moved out. And then now the town planners are a bit like, well, how do we get people back into the town? And
but my brain was going to the same point, and I was thinking, if this does happen over the next 15, 20 years, what does that mean to places like London, like Canary Wharf, where the price per square mile is astronomical? Like, they don't need to go into Canary Wharf, don't you? So what happens there?
Chief of Barclays, when we all got sent home back in 2020, not long, 2 years ago, was sort of saying, actually, my whole banking corporation has carried on and everyone's at home. And I'm paying, tens of thousands of pounds per square foot, meter, whatever the metric is. And everything's just fine. I don't need this huge skyscraper in Canary Wharf. And it is going to happen. And I think it's right to happen down the line, but it's just at the moment, I think there's just those unknowns as to the effects on people. We go take it a step further. You're saying about shopping and things like that. Who doesn't like going on Amazon every night and saying, "Oh, buy that. I'll have that tomorrow. That's brilliant, instant." But what about a pub? What about restaurants? They're the sort of things. 100%. Are they going to be the only things that exist in any sort of place? A gym. We'll start having virtual gyms.
Yeah, town centres and things like that.
Peloton.
People are going to...
There you go. Yeah, the Peloton, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's kicked off massively with the virtual sort of, at home sort of cycling and bits and pieces. But these town centres, they've obviously got history. So that's always going to be a draw. Like London's always going to have a draw, and then the cultural side of things. So then it comes back to, okay, so you take away the mundane stuff and you allow people to go back to being human again. Okay, can we allow that cultural side of things to come out of it? So again, London is a bit of a mixing pot. There's loads of different ethnic backgrounds and all sorts of stuff going, and different religions and different. So are going to people wanting to travel to different places to experience that, or are they going to stick their headset on and go to a virtual Mumbai or wherever and go and try and... Because there is going to be, and this is where you're right, we are going to be in a very strange position, because for people like ourselves that have done a bit of traveling, that have been... So kids are going to try and do it virtually, maybe, but then are they going to... So, for example, a estate agent, before you spend loads of money going to see that, can you do it virtually and think, actually, yeah, it's worth the money, I'll then go ahead
it's worth my time.
Yeah, it's worth my time and effort, and is it worth me going?
Yeah. But I know what you mean. You'll end up with a very curated kind of view of the place that you're going to, won't you? You wouldn't get to see, I wouldn't imagine, the real New York and what happens in the side streets of New York and all. Yeah,
and that's a bit like a packagology, if you like. You kind of you're buying stuff, you go, you experience, but you're right, it's like the authentic, and that I think might happen. You strip back the layers a bit, and you get to the authentic side of things. Can humans be a bit more authentic? Can you actually get to the real New York, the real, as opposed to the poster and the brochure sort of see the sights and smell it. But again, because we still have other senses, taste, smell, sight, sound, all that type of stuff, it's going to be difficult to replicate all of that digitally. I think that's where we need to be very clever and just sort of not draw a line, because I think it'll self-govern to a certain degree. I think humans, by nature, we like to be social animals. We like to be together, because, I mean, you look at prisons, the worst thing you can do is isolate someone. So, I think we'll naturally want to herd together.
Come from.
Do you know what I mean? But I was going to use the analogy of isolation from COVID, but because, again, everybody felt that. We don't like to be restricted. No. We want to be... Most people's want to be free. We want that freedom to do and say and move around.
It has been great getting back in the office, hasn't it? It's been really...
I do, and you can do it virtually, and we all have chats, via Teams, and have a bit of banter and things like that. But I think there's nothing, hopefully after this we might go for a quick beer, but nothing beats just like sitting around the table, having a yarn, a bit like we're doing now, and doing that in person. But just picking up on what you were saying about London and things like that, having worked in London for like 7 or 8 years, actually, for me, the beauty of what technology is today and in 10 years' time, 20, 30 years' time is that actually you don't have to, I had to commute 2 hours each way to London. Yeah. I was a sardine on the tubes. If you missed your train, whatever, driving in and out of a capital or a large city is just the pits. So actually, where technology will take us from our work environment to become efficient, effective, and do things much more proficiently, if you like, actually it will free up time to then go into London and actually do the personal, social stuff and enjoy that in a physical. I think that's where technology will.
I think you've hit on something there. I think I don't know if that metaverse will replace the leisure element. I think you're right. Going into London for a leisure and seeing the sights is one thing. Will people spend 2 hours on the tube going in to get into Canary Wharf to have meetings? Probably not. I think that could have a massive impact on our capital and every other city around the world if that does happen. Then you think a government's planning for that. Are they aware of that? Do they think this is coming? And if they are, why are they invested in HS2 and big infrastructure projects to get people into London every single day.
See, I don't think they are aware of it or what, because again, these sort of thought leaders, if you like, are so far ahead of, and their aspirations are so far ahead that the government seems to have to react to, oh yeah, we've just dropped this new idea. Or again, the metaverse is a strange one because it has to have different technologies need to collide at different points, because it's been around for a while. Like someone said with PlayStation, for example, it had a little virtual thing. You could be a little avatar, and you could have a little house, and nobody really used it. Nobody was bothered. But now it's a bit more immersive. They're actually putting it on a headset, and you're actually wandering around as such. But you're not really walking because you're sat on your couch and you're using your little joysticks to wander around. So it's still a bit odd.
Technology's funny, isn't it? I think it's the Gartner. I'll get back to look it up in a minute. I think it's the Gartner hype cycle where you kind of get a big peak of like hype in new technology and everyone gets on board with it, and then it drops off a cliff because it doesn't take off as quickly as people expect, and then slowly it builds its way back up again, and then it becomes part of kind of day-to-day life.
Yeah, you've got to have a certain amount of things
of
sort of collide at the right time to sort of for it to take off.
Yeah, we've probably seen the metaverse as lots of hype when Zuckerberg got on board with it, and then it kind of dropped off a cliff. But I think over time, quite rapidly, probably it'll start to pick up again and infiltrate our lives.
And that's the thing for me is, we were talking pre-coming on here, back at what was happening back in the 90s, the noughties. We were talking about the iPhone came in 2008, whatever. And the speed of, when did, the likes of Amazon start? That was like 2012, something like that. Was it 2013?
Yeah.
But where that's gone, where that started to where that's gone now, and where it will be next year, I mean, just for me, despite being a bit of a dinosaur, the excitement as to where technology's going and how it makes our lives better, both personally and professionally, is, it's exciting. But, part of me is like scared in a positive sense as to where this will end.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So just to put in, so the hype cycle, it's 5 phases. So you've got the technology trigger, which is potential technology breaks through, everyone gets excited. Then peak of inflated expectations. So early publicity produces loads of success stories, but then often accompanied by lots of failures. Trough of disillusionment.
Yeah.
Interest wanes. People, interest starts to decline. Then you've got the slope of enlightenment. So more instances of how the technology can benefit the enterprise starts to crystallise and become more widely understood. And then plateau of productivity. So the mainstream adoption starts to take off. And not to butt in, but I think it's kind of interesting because you've got hype cycles all overlapping and interlinking at all times. So and that can maybe make it kind of difficult to even realise what hype cycle you're in.
Yeah.
Some of them sort of merge together, and if you think about like Google Glass, which I think was quite a while ago.
Yeah.
And then that sort of was going to be the big thing, was all going to be wearing Google Glass, and then all of a sudden it just died. And then again recently, then there's the whole VR headsets have come back in, and they're a bit better, and we're seeing them a bit more, but still it's not quite there yet, is it?
No.
Yeah.
I think sooner or later we're going to get there. And just one other thing, actually, when you was talking earlier, I wanted to mention, what about 3D printing? And what about, instead of having chefs at restaurants, you can have, Gordon Ramsay or name your chef, 3D printed meal that tastes better than any meal can taste. Is that?
Yeah.
You probably hate that, but
Why would I hate that?
because you're a self-professed dinosaur.
No,
He wants his vegetables to grow out the ground. Naturally.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my days.
No. What do you mean? Like, so you could just go online and download something and then say, I want Gordon Ramsay to cook me a meal. So you download something and you 3D print it.
There's like a microwave
3D print
in your house,
food.
But
Wow,
it
okay.
rapidly 3D prints, and you just go, like in Star Trek, because a lot of the things that we're talking about now,
Yes.
someone's
already
Trust me,
thought of it.
3D printing's not rapid. Trust me
no,
on that
not
one.
now, but one day.
Yeah,
who knows how
absolutely.
quick it can be, and then instant communication again. Star Trek.
You've got a 3D print, don't you? You got
Easy. I didn't want that public. Thanks for that. I refer. No, my son has. I refer you back. I refer you back to my earlier response about personally going out and having that experience, but not in your own. You want to get out of your house, don't you?
It could be the same in a restaurant. So rather than a team of chefs in the kitchen, why can't they just 3D print food?
So what we're going to do with all the chefs in the world? Are just going to be.
that's the question we've been asking, isn't it? Like, what do they do? Do they move to 3
Well,
days
they
a week?
reload the 3D printers.
Yeah. It's an interesting concept.
Because again, it doesn't all have to be one thing over the other.
Mm.
No,
It
it
can be
doesn't.
both
You're right.
things, and it
Yeah.
can be an integration. There might be things in the kitchen that are right Baltic, sort of the equivalent to some of the processes that we automate, where it'd be so much easier if you could just have a printer that just sorts that bit out for you. But then there might be certain bits where you really take pleasure in,
So,
garnishing or
Yeah.
seasoning or
It's
whatever.
season. Just salt and pepper.
he's the chef out of the three of us, but or the four of us. But what I would say actually, what I love the idea of being a dinosaur is that what a great opportunity to open up to everyone the opportunity of having a fine dining experience. That actually that's if that was ever to come about, that would be brilliant. That
That's a great point. Yeah.
anyone could experience, going and paying what in the current world we'd pay an awful lot of money to do. That actually you could just say, actually, here's my 3D printing file. Can I have this unbelievable meal? Bosh.
Yeah.
And I'll jump back out of the conversation now, but
Yeah.
it's a really good point because that's what technology seems to do for the world. Is it seems to even the playing field, giving people access, because even in third world countries, that I've been to, people have very few resources, but still have smartphones and they're still plugged into the internet.
Yeah,
And can
I've seen
still,
that. I've seen that. Yeah.
have side hustles or get into NFTs or cryptocurrency or whatever, and it levels that playing field because 20 years ago, to get access to the computer and the internet, cost you a lot of money.
Yeah.
But you'll always get someone trying to create exclusivity to charge more. So there'll be an exclusive event that you can't get tickets to, or there'll always be that side of things. Because once you've got all the money in the world, it's a bit like, well, what? I can buy anything. I can do anything type thing. It's like, and then you get build a spaceship.
That's ultimately technology improves the standard of living, doesn't it, for the population, or it should do. But then there's always somebody pushing the envelope, to your point, and taking it to the next level, which is what Bezos et al. Are doing.
Yeah, so tomorrow's workplace today, we might be working on a spaceship in the moon.
Do you know what? I love the
In 30
idea.
years.
Spinning it back round to me being on the golf course, I love the idea of actually technology allowing me to do my day job as effectively and efficiently as possible and still playing 18 each day. Perfect.
That's it, yeah.
It's good. It's a good point. Should we leave it there?
Place to end.
Good place to end.
Yeah.
Yeah.